All right, we are back after 7.2 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah, nice try.
72.
Yeah, I didn't even get into the bathroom until.
Tomato. All right, we are back with, we are on to finance. So, Chair Norton, bring the fun.
Yes. So we are starting on agenda item 4.4, state fiscal year 2023 discretionary carry forward balance status and approval for use. The first motion we have for the board is that the committee recommends that the board approves using $30,000 from the Federal Mineral Lease Fund from the board's discretionary funds for family studies as outlined and to include financial literacy, research questions, and similar courses.
Okay, questions, comments? If not, let's vote. Are we all set up to go? Okay. Sorry,
Then hit your mic.
question?
There you
Hold
go.
on, hold. Well, let's see. You got 2 votes up there already, but Member Klein, were you trying to?
Yes, is this the success sequence research? Is that what this one is?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Vice
thank
Chair
you.
Earls?
Just
You wanna
wanted,
address
yeah,
that?
I don't know if somebody wants to elaborate on
This is
that
Vice
because it
Chair
doesn't
Earls.
really
Oh.
share it in the recommended action. It just, the recommended action doesn't give much detail as, or the correct detail according to the description that we received in our backups. I just thought it would be better that the public know exactly what it is.
So
we're
I
voting
just,
on.
Vice Chair
to
Earls?
speak to that, some people asked for some additional information. This is one possibility. I asked if they could put a possibility together, what it might look like. And the reason why is because we have to put it out for contract. So it would have to go out and then people would have to submit their contracts. It's not a set contract. Does that make any sense? So it's, the research project would go forward. We'd have to submit for entities to submit. The entity that's put together some information will probably submit, but then we would pick from those. So it's not a, does that make sense? Yeah, and because you would have to put it out for contract for it to be, but yeah, an RFP. So people asked what could that look like? They wanted some more information on it. And I said, would you mind writing something up? If you were to do this, what would it maybe look like? So that would be.
So will the success sequence ideas be included in the RFP? Or are we specifying that?
Yeah, let me look at the language that, I'm sorry. Do we have the motion up on the board? Yeah, I think you're right. It would need to include that. So if you want it to make an amendment, I thought,
Well, I'm not going to make an amendment, but it's too broad the way it is for me to support it as is.
Okay, further comment or question?
I would,
If not, I'm sorry.
yeah, and yeah, because that was not, that's accurate. I guess maybe I'm seeking clarification also then from that committee itself. Was the intent the research project as it was put forward, or the language as it's specified here? That would be my question, because this is something, and I don't know what this is, to be honest with you. I agreed with Board Member Klein on that.
Deputy Jones? Thank you, sir.
Chair Moss, Scott Jones, Deputy Superintendent of Operations. So to Vice Chair Earl's point, there was request for more information. To Chair to Board Member Klein's concern, the RFP will be reviewed and vetted for specificity and details on what the expectations are of a vendor for the research study. We don't normally put RFPs in front of the board per se, but the intent is to be as detailed as possible and include the requirements of what the research project entails. So
So
these
is
are
it the
just,
language, we have the
Yep.
language here, but is it the language that I submitted, or is it this language here
it,
that would put
that
out?
would be determined as part of the RFP process. So if you say it should be the language that you submitted, that would go into the RFP.
Okay,
So,
so
and not this language. So,
then I don't mind having the financial literacy in there. I would just
Okay.
make an amendment that we make sure it includes the success sequence in that as well.
great.
So.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is that a formal amendment then?
Yeah, that's an amendment.
Okay, so what would be the language of the amendment? Let's tee that up for discussion and vote then.
For family studies, including the success sequence. Actually,
Did include with the financial literacy piece?
Yeah, the part that I added, honestly, I'm not sure that's, I saw that as a big part of what the success sequence discussion has been. It's been a financial matter, it's also a health matter, so I added that, but honestly, I think, Vice Chair Earl may have a different opinion on that. It's her program. I think I've been talking to folks about financial literacy, so if there's an amendment to take that out, I'm not necessarily against it. I just open it up for the floor, but I would defer to Vice Chair Earl on the intent of her proposal.
yeah, the intent would have the success sequence in there. I had research questions. Were those research questions, maybe that's the question to ask. Were those, it doesn't look like those were moved
Oh,
forward unless this is included with this.
We read it all.
Okay, so, but that's not part of the motion. So that's considered part of the motion or not? No, okay.
No, we read the entire piece, and then the motion that was brought before us was the one that's listed there, and then we added in
The financial
the
literacy.
financial literacy, which was a bigger part of our
So
discussion.
I guess my question is, does it include the research questions that were asked?
I think it was left pretty open.
Okay, so yeah, then I would, well, okay, I've already got
We were
amendment.
talking more about family studies in general.
okay.
I think, sorry. Do we not have a second? We need to see what the motion is. I will just,
Can we-
yeah, let's tee up the motion, then I can address it and we can get some clarity. Do we have the motion up, how you'd like it? Does that look right?
Just a second. Because you want to look at the financial literacy component, specifically this was to look at, instead of being so broad, it was narrowed to in our health curriculum. That's my research questions coming out. That's why I'm asking the question. And so it would seem to me, leaving it broad, we were going to get maybe some information, but it would seem like keeping it narrowly focused provides a very defined direction instead of just a broad family studies kind of a thing, if that makes sense. So I would, yeah, that's fine.
So that's reflected in the backup.
It is reflected, but
it's
that's why I
not
was
in the
asking. It's
motion.
not in the motion, so it wouldn't be the
Yeah.
motion, it's just family studies and financial literacy.
Is the motion then to add the research questions
Yeah, I think-
from the backup as well
Well, I'd
as
have
the
to add that
reference
as a
to
second
success
motion if
sequence?
someone. Yes, I would.
Well, we didn't
I
finish
think I would
framing
just
your
add this,
motion,
that we add
so-
the research questions too, instead of in place that. Sorry. trying to- I would ask that we add the research questions in association with this request.
So those are in backup. It's
I can read those
questions are,
It says, how could Utah schools incorporate the success sequence within health education courses already established within schools? What learning objectives do health education 1 and 2 teach concerning the key components of the success sequence? What portion of class instruction is currently focused on protective factors similar to the success sequence?
Member Davis has had her light on.
Member Davis. Can we, can we see what the motion is? I was holding the lights because we haven't had a second or.
We did.
Oh, you're right. Member Bogus did, but I'm not sure if we had the motion up there. I think she was still formulating her motion. So, thank you. Let's see what it is though, and then we can discuss it. Do we have the research questions that we can throw into the motion? They're in backup, and sorry, I forgot who's driving, but they're in the agenda memo. We just need to throw them into the motion. Do we have those? Are you throwing the questions? Okay, I don't mean to push you. Just wondered if you were trying to just reference them or incorporate. I think we probably need to incorporate to be clear, because the reference is tough. Yes.
I think it's part of the, yeah, this is an addition to it. Yeah, yes, include financial literacy research questions. This is adding that to it. I think it's sufficient.
All right, we have it up. Sorry, folks. Do we have that? You still okay with your second, Member Bogus? Yes. I understand. I just don't want you to have a surprise once it's put up there, right? So, okay, you're good with it? Okay, okay. All right, I think
Okay,
we
so-
have, hold on, we have a
Yeah.
motion, we have a second, and so the floor is open if there are amendments or discussion to that motion. So what's our sequence here?
It's,
Lights.
I don't
Member
know
Lear?
if
Or-
Davis was completed. If so, then it's Lear and then Real. Davis.
Back to you,
Lear.
Member Davis?
Yeah, I supported this one in our finance committee because it didn't put any additional burden on teachers or students. I just want to make sure I understand from Member O bringing the motion forward, Chair, if, just to clarify and make sure, this can be done studying the family success sequence, the current standards, how they might incorporate. It's not going to involve surveying or interviewing teachers and students and all of that kind of stuff, right?
Good question. Vice Chair Earl?
Because it has not been put out, it could be what we want it to be, which would, what I envisioned was looking at class structure, the curriculums or the standards that we have, the materials we have, and saying, where can this be incorporated in? It wasn't meant to go out and do interviews and such,
Okay.
so.
And I think Member Davis is asking because those of us that are on the Reports and Requirements Task Force know that if we are out there putting more out, we better have a thorough discussion about it. We're trying not to pile more requests for information, surveys, reports, et cetera, but I think I'm hearing from the answer that's not the intent, right? So this is to sort of survey materials and class structure. Yeah.
Then
Yep.
just a quick follow-up. The reason I did vote to support this in our finance committee was for that reason, but also because this came up when we did our health standards and we voted against it, but it came up so fast and it was the name of the program and it was, I love that if we're going to put something with a name to it that could possibly change with research down the road or whatever, that we're thinking about it carefully and studying because I really do believe in the concepts of it. So anyway, I support it. Thanks.
All
Can I
right, thank
speak?
you. Vice Chair
And
Earl?
I just did a
a
quick response to that. The reason why it wasn't put in, if you remember correctly, because I was the one that submitted it, was because someone said, oh, it's a term that'll come and go, it'll be gone in a year. And it hasn't. And the reason why it hasn't is because it's based on pretty sound research. And if anything, it's actually been perpetuated more. We have a number of districts actually. One of our large districts is doing some promotional items around this idea. And so just looking at our curriculum and the things that we're doing, I think this is a great way to implement some sound research in that area.
Yes.
But I didn't say that. But I think we're remembering that conversation. But I don't know who else expressed, but I expressed a concern that I didn't know if it would change within it as years go on. Like what types of things would be added or taken away or changed. And so then you put a name of something in and you don't have control over what the content evolves and ebbs and flows to be. So that was but I do appreciate a more in-depth study of it.
Okay, who's next? Member Lear?
It would be Lear, Reel, and then Klein.
we
And
go.
I like the first part of the motion a lot. I think studying these things is a very good thing. As I look quickly at success sequence, it absolutely has a political bent. And I don't like that. I would like to study this objectively and be able to look at the information without being led in a certain direction. And that troubles me. So I can't support the motion, including the questions. I do like the first part of the motion. We know there are problems with young men and their success in school, and that relates to the family questions, but I would prefer be broader rather than more narrow in terms of a specific success sequence. And I'm not sure about health, or Leanne mentioned financial literacy. I'm not sure where that fits the most appropriately, but I can't support this with those questions because I think it sends the study in a certain direction.
All right, thank you, Member Lear. Member Reel?
Thank you. I agree with Member Lear on a lot of the notes that she made, but one piece for me is that health education is an area that has a lot of code requirements. And from what I know about those courses and the standards, there's very little space for adding to those courses. So I think, I'm not sure if there is a way to potentially include in the research areas in which this would be better fit, because for me, health education there's so many code requirements in some of those 8-week to 12-week 16-week courses or 12-week courses that are fitting in the already jammed standards. Seems like maybe it would be better fit somewhere else.
Okay, thank you. Member Klein?
Oh, goodness. Just for the record, I think the public should know what the success sequence is. It's obtaining a high school education, finding a full-time job, waiting for marriage to have children, is basically what it is, just for the record. But I'm thinking on that last question, it's just a slight edit. I would say what portion of class instruction currently incorporates success sequence concepts. That's would that be a friendly, or do I need to?
I'm fine with
Amend
that
the
unless there's someone that
amendment.
has opposition to it. It would be friendly. So
Okay. And then my only concern is, I don't know if we can scroll up.
all right. You don't? Okay, then we'll vote on it. So it'll be moved as a motion,
Okay,
as an
so-
amendment.
I even oppose it more if you add that.
So I would amend the amendment. What portion of classroom instruction includes success sequence concepts, or currently includes success sequence concepts.
Okay, do we have it framed up correctly? Is there a second? The motion's now up on the board. Second from Member Green. Open to discussion. So we don't have leftover lights, do we? Member Norton? Okay, you're for this? Okay.
Okay, it does not appear, only Norton is in the queue.
Member Straight took his light off. Are you wanting to address this though? Well, go ahead, Member Norton.
Okay.
Anybody else can jump in line.
I guess I have a question with this by when we bring it back to success sequence. Are we talking about then putting this into our standards and that success sequence would be in our standards? Because that feels to me like we are now stepping over the boundaries into the LEA's world of determining what curriculum, because they're going to have to pick curriculum that has success sequence in there. You know, these are great principles, and many people have chosen to use those principles in their life, and it has turned, you know, it's been very successful for them to use that. And that's why I like the whole concept of this. And I think it is when we were talking about family studies and including these concepts, that's great. But when we have to use success sequence and these questions, then I feel like we have now determined the curriculum that a district or a charter would have to use for this family studies class that may or may not become part of our standards.
Can I ask a clarifying question for that? What is there a proposal? I didn't catch this as having a proposal for a family studies class. Am I overlooking something? Does the original amendment have a proposal that add a?
Family studies for whatever, I don't know what that is.
Is that a class or is that just the broadly like small letters family studies? I guess that's my question. I know that.
I didn't ask for family studies. This was the research question that I had.
So there's not a proposal to add a class or consider adding a class. I took this to be more of a, look around and see the extent to which these principles of the success sequence are found in our materials. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And I guess personally, I would consider that as part of, should we be adding these principles to existing materials? Other people might have their own interpretations, but I guess that's a great point because that would be a different thing that what I was thinking. So I want to clarify. It doesn't sound like there's a proposal to add a class, though. No. Okay, I think that's important clarity for me. All right, who's next? We got Member Lear. Member Lear.
And I feel like this comment furthers my concern because that I didn't mention in the earlier comment. I can live with LEAs choosing a political bent to their curriculum. That's a choice that they make. I don't want to do that as a state. So I don't like adding the success sequence, even if it's something I would support, even if it's something that's admirable. I don't like things that go in a certain political direction. And I really don't like then telling LEAs, when you choose your curriculum, the standard directs you to include something to do with success sequence.
Can I comment?
Okay, Vice Chair Earl.
Yeah, I don't. This isn't, you have to use this curriculum. This is just looking at where are the components that we already have in place. And then it would make recommendations, but that's what research does, right? It looks at where we're at and it says, here's some areas where you could improve upon, and then it goes from there. But someone had said, well, if the whole, like broadening it out, if you broaden it out, which is fine, $30,000, it was pretty narrow for a reason. If you're doing research, normally you're around 50 or more $1,000 to do more of an in-depth analysis. This was kind of a broad overview, or at least that was the intent.
Follow up to that, Chair, just very quickly. And that may be so, but then why are we not studying why are we not studying a variety of constructs or programs that might have a different end in mind, or might have different principles embedded in them? That seems to me the more objective kind of a study, not where is success sequence, but not where is anti-success sequence.
Because
Where's the failure sequence? Let's study that.
yeah,
exactly.
but I've just
And so I
wondered.
think
but-
I want to have an opportunity to stay, and maybe 30,000 isn't enough, then it isn't enough, and we either find more money or but just studying in one political direction to look for qualifiers or indicators doesn't, to me, feel comfortable.
So I know you keep adding political direction, and maybe you've attached a political direction into it.
I
It's
read on
it's listing off the things that we have the greatest success for, moving up in on towards the American dream, so to speak. So I guess if that's a political direction, yeah. But if you wanted to submit another research project, I submitted this thinking, or if you want to alter it or whatever. But this is the reason why we're doing this is because I submitted a research request, right? So.
right. And, well, I don't want to keep it back and forth going.
All right. Are there others? I had a comment, but I don't want to jump in line. Member Klein?
I've made this comment before, and I think it needs to be made again, that I think that the difference is there, in this room, we have people that define success differently. And this is, I think, where we get the impasse. And that's just another reason why we should be allowing individuals to define success for themselves. There are some things, though, that are objectively, I would think, non-debatable when it comes to what is success. To be able to become self-sufficient and to, have strong, lasting marriages and families and be able to support the family. I don't know who would say that that is not success. Anybody that would say that's not success, I would say must have a political bent against the family or against marriage or against children. And so I would say that to me sounds more like the political bent. The family, marriage, children, that's not inherently political unless somebody politicizes it in order to destroy that success sequence that has been proven over time.
Thank you, Member Klein. My comment is, I've been hearing a lot about this over the last year or so, and what I like about it, and, there's labels and such that come and go. It's basically what works. The question is a research question. What produces kind of an anti-poverty effect? And there's a lot of that stuff out there. It's across the spectrum. Everything we do becomes politicized. We know that. What I like is people who say, what's the research that this is correlated or perhaps caused by something? And what the research I've seen on this, including the Brookings Institute, which is pretty much straight up the middle, is basically, does that produce something? So I like it. I mean, I like the idea that we study it, because if it shows that you're more likely to not live in poverty, that's, I think, something that we want. So I'm in favor of it, but I get the comments. What you do with it could become politicized. And so if there are other angles that people want to research, but I'm in favor of asking the questions, what's out there, and are these things adding up to something that students might want to know about? I think it's a good point that they may want something entirely different. And so prescribing this would be a problem for me, laying out there in the course of health or financial literacy that, hey, research has found X, Y, and Z correlates or perhaps causes Y, is something that we do regularly. And I think it would be a benefit to them to be aware of that if that turns out to be something the board wants to consider. Not an opposing curriculum, not, telling them you must do this. Just getting the awareness out there. So that's my view. Anybody else? I don't want to hog time. If not, let's vote. The motion is, the amendment is, from Member Klein. I apologize. I broke my own rule. I was speaking a little more broadly than Member Klein's amendment. So the motion to amend question 3 to say what portion of classroom instruction currently includes success sequence concepts. That was seconded, wasn't it? Yes, Member Green. Sorry. All right, let's vote. Showing 27 votes? Oh.
How come it says 26 votes on there?
There may be some people.
It says like 12 out of 26.
Okay, yeah, because it says that I can vote, which I have.
Everybody is. It's everybody.
And you
is.
get 13 votes? Wow.
There's 15.
I'm just kidding. I know. I mean, but to get to 27, it's
I could if you wanted to.
no. Okay, we've got 15. Oh, with all voting, that passes 12-3. The nay votes being members Wood, Member Rio, Member Lair. So, as amended, the motion for the body is up on the chart, on the screen. Yeah, if we could add that language in, that would be great. Oy. Oh yeah, could we scroll up to see the top part too? Sure.
Point of order question?
I'm sorry, I've gotten lost in the thing. I think this would fit better in financial literacy than health, but the financial literacy.
No, it's,
That's in there.
it's still part of the original. Yeah. This is adding that to that.
So, go ahead, Member Davis. Yeah, the questions don't include financial literacy. Is that the point that it's listed above, but not in the questions themselves?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my understanding was it would be considered if it was better to go in health standards or financial literacy standards, which is what I was.
So currently, I guess, well, I'm just trying to clarify and move us along. I think we have a question that comes out. The question of whether we do anything with that would be another issue, I would believe. But we do have I guess for me, one question is, it says financial literacy. Do we need to add that to the research question so that it's clear that we're asking about both? Is that?
Yeah. And
So I don't even think this question, as I understand it, includes consideration of whether this would go in standards,
no, it's just.
right? It's purely research.
Add financial literacy to number 2 question.
That was fine.
So that they're looking at both.
Cindy, just add it to it.
Jenny, maybe the point is not to add this to standards, but just to give a resource to LEAs
It
for
doesn't even say
anything they
that.
want to be used
not
in,
even that.
health or financial literacy or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it even says that.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
I think I misunderstood.
Okay.
Thank you.
So is it a friendly to add financial literacy in question 2, I think was the question somebody raised.
Sure.
I don't know who that was, but okay. I heard it. Nobody wants to own it. I'll take it. So that's a friendly, then I guess I'll make that. What learning objectives in health education 1 and 2 or financial literacy teach concerning the key concepts of the success sequence? Okay.
You would probably want to put self-replication up in the main part of the motion also, so that it's both.
Yes. Would that be a friendly? Okay. Any objection to either of those as friendlies so that we would add financial literacy in the question and add health in the intro so that they're both consistent in referencing both? And again, this is just a research question. I don't think it's a suggestion or a decision point. It obviously is with any research. It could suggest somebody might want to use it for action, propose, bring it back. But this itself, I don't understand to do anything about saying, should we do anything? It's just an is question, not an ought question, right? Is that okay? So those have been made friendlies, except we need to add financial literacy in question 2. Oh, who? Please do, yes.
I think you may, Chair Moss, have answered my question, but I just want to hear it again from the maker of the motion, and for the public. So this is not something yet that is going to be imposed on anyone. It's just, we have money to do some studies, and Member Earl is suggesting that this would be an interesting thing to study. Is it as
Yes.
simple as that?
It is as simple as that. We're seeing where do we see it in there? Is there areas of improvement that we could incorporate it in? There is no action associated with it. When a research project comes back, we can then take
Gotcha.
action if we choose to.
Gotcha.
This
Follow-
isn't redo the standards.
Short
so-
follow-up.
Yep.
So that it's possible in this research process, there could be other programs studied that might not be exactly success sequence, but could be, children first, then careers, then, it could be something completely different.
No,
that
not
could
really. That's
enter
not
in-
what the success sequence is.
So
I-
it only is limited to the success sequence, is that what you're saying?
Yes. The concepts within the success sequence. So yes,
Okay, thank you.
it is suggesting you should graduate from high school, that kind of stuff, which, yeah, but yeah.
All right. Further comments, questions? That's my understanding too. Is this is a question about a specific area of discussion that a lot of research has been focused on. It's not meant to suggest a course of action. It's not exclusive of other questions. But it would be a decision that for 30 grand, we'd like to know more about this thing that's been percolating out there in Brookings and elsewhere. And board members, of course, are free, as Member Earl did, to say, hey, I'd like to look at this question. And so, Member Wood. Yeah.
And then Klein.
So question on number 1, could it then be, how could Utah schools incorporate the success sequences within courses already established? Why are we limiting to health education if we have some of our districts I've heard have a family studies course, some, we have my daughter did CTE through with the child development that talked about the whole line of best practices in child development are parents who are educated, married. So could we remove health education and simply put within courses already established within schools?
Member Earl, is that a
No,
friendly-
it's not. Here's the thing. It's narrow for a reason. If we want to, if we want to do a $100,000 study and say where in all of the public education do we see the success sequence? The reason why it's narrowed is saying, okay, where are the key areas that this may be able to influence in our schools, and where are the key areas that we're seeing. Financial literacy is definitely one of those. Health education. This is where we talk about families, and we talk about relationships. We talk about healthy things that help us in high school, out of high school. So it's asking where can we improve those protective factors, and maybe there's nowhere in it, right? If you want to make it broader, we can make it broader. We can, ask for another $30,000. $30,000 isn't much when you're doing research. So it's just creating a narrow. It's narrowly focused. Just trying to say where are these things in here right now. So if we want to go further than that, then let's add some more money to it. Let's say all the curriculum and the, you know what I mean, or all the standards that we have. So
So it's not a friendly, is it an amendment? Okay. And again, feel free, you can obviously go the normal route and tee up an amendment, but, okay, sure, yes. You got it. We got you. You're in.
So, no, I don't have an amendment. I appreciate that. Unfortunately, I loved your comment. I loved that you were using protective factors, because I think there are specific actions that taken. Unfortunately, we took those protective factors, that statement out, but I did like your protective factors.
Okay, further comment to the underlying motion, Member Hymas.
Underlying motion?
Well, sorry, the underlying motion to amend, Member Earl.
No, well, that's fine. I support it. I was going to comment, but to Leanne saying if we've got to put more money if we want more broad. I don't like the broad specifically. I do support the motion underlying and overall motion. I'd love to move on from this. Beating a dead horse is hard. So,
And unfruitful.
anyway, I really appreciate the research question. I appreciate that it's open to board members. I appreciate that this one came out, and this is what Member Earl came up with and said, this is what I want to see research. And now we're going to beat the tar out of it. But I think it is important. I think it's important. We're on this vein of equity here, and we talk about something that has been proven to work and proven to set up better lives. And now we're saying, well, wait a second. Why not do the research, right? Why not say, well, let's see what it can do and then make it available. I don't even want to get there because that's way down the road, but let's look at it. So I support the motions.
Okay, thank you, Member Hymas. The motion to amend is then up, and so as amended, the board approves using $300,000 for federal mineral lease from discretionary funds. 30. That was not a that was not a friendly amendment. Sorry, that was a slip. 30,000 from the federal mineral lease fund from discretionary funds for family studies as outlined and to include health and education 1 and 2 and financial literacy research questions and similar courses. Was the underlying motion correct? Or is that as amended? That first question has been amended to include health education. So all of this is the motion as amended with the underlined parts being the amendments that have been accepted. So with that, let's vote. Okay, voting concluded. That passes 13-2 with the no votes being members Reel and Lear. Thank you. And we then, let's see. I think that does it, yes? We still go back to the underlying. Okay, I forgot whether that amended the underlying. All right, so what do we have left then? That was to incorporate the amendments, and now we have to vote for the total motion as amended. Am I getting? Geez, I'm out of practice. Sorry, folks. All right, we now have the motion as amended, which is on the board, which now includes the underlined language, which we just passed. Any further comments or discussion to that underlying motion? All right, let's vote. Okay, voting is closed. That motion passes also by 13-2 with the nays being Reel and Lear. Okay, thank you. And let's see, we're back to, I think that concludes that particular item. We had 2 more that came out of, yeah, the element of the item, I should say. So 2 more to come out of that discretionary funds proposal.
Okay, the next motion for this use of discretionary funds is that the committee recommends that the board approves using $400,000 one-time funding from the Federal Mineral Lease Fund for the board's discretionary fund for Pathful Connect.
Discussion of that motion. I have comments, and I guess I got the floor. So this came out of something I've been working on with Talent Ready Utah. Member Straight was involved in conversation yesterday. Talia Longhurst and Brecken Haywood are here from our CTE. the project we've been discussing is how do you make work-based learning opportunities and internships available to those who don't have immediate geographical access to those types of things. And so we've got a lot going on the Wasatch Front, whether it's software or tech or med tech or hospitals. Kids who live close to that often have access. Those who don't do not. So you got kids on the west side, you got kids on the basin. There's my district is out in the basin. And there are kids who just don't have that. They don't know about Pluralsight or Qualtrics or some of these other things that are going on along the Wasatch Front. So that's been the discussion. We've talked about putting together a toolkit that would help businesses and districts understand how do you do that in a way that gives a good educational experience and allows businesses to reach out to kids that might not be in their regular scope and bring them into that process. And partly what we've found is that just people don't understand how to do this. There's no toolkit out there that helps explain. And so I've been working with businesses and trade groups and chambers. We've also talked to a number of LEAs, charters, and districts. There's some real interest in doing this. It's an access point. It gives broader participation opportunities. And as we talked about the toolkit, to kind of explain how that works, our CTE office brought up an opportunity they're aware of called Pathful, which actually has a platform for doing this and then other things. They've set up videos that talk about how to, prepare for and explore different job opportunities. They set up, people to remote in to a school and explain what this particular job opportunity is all about. So it's just basically spreading access. And when that came up, we brought it for another use of discretionary funding. They're being used in Idaho, several other states, and it appeared to both fulfill kind of the need that we were addressing, that once we have all these interested participants on the business side and the school side, and once we've explained to them how you work through things like data privacy and workers' comp and access and what's the kid going to do, well, then how do we bring those people together? And we've got a few that I think are willing to show proof of concept and do this, but then we got to make it available to whoever wants to sign on. That's where Pathful came in. If a kid just jumps on and says, I'm interested in electrical engineering, and a company on the Wasatch Front says, yeah, I'm interested in that, now you got a platform, right? So that's the backup, and we spent an hour and a half, Member Straight and I talking to the company yesterday to make sure that my questions were, can we have this adapted to what we've been working up to rather than just signing on to a fixed platform? And we got some really good feedback about how they will prepare a white label that's basically our version of their product and then do it the things that we're looking at and what we've been working on. So any other comments, questions about that? If not, we can vote. Or Member Straight. And Member K.
There you go.
I was hitting the wrong button. Anyway, I appreciated the presentation and the educational equity that was provided by this program and support that. I see great opportunities for excellence and having especially rural schools or disadvantaged schools have opportunity to project themselves into success. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Straight. Member Carey.
Yeah, I'd like to speak in opposition to the motion. I spent some time on pathful.com, and I would encourage board members to visit that site if they haven't already. And their site is unambiguous and clear that it's about, and it says it, we're going to prepare a K through 12 workforce. And I ask myself, when do kids have the time just to be kids? And it says right there that, in our elementary schools, we're going to prepare them introduce them to the world of work. They're going to have enough time to be introduced to the world of work. And nowhere do I see on their website a mention about how this helps academic excellence, which I thought was a theme of this board. Their focus, their singular focus is, are we going to produce kids, this pipeline into the workforce? And I understand the wisdom of that, but wow, elementary school, kindergarten, We're going to introduce them to the world of work. So I speak against it for those two reasons. One, let children just be children for at least kindergarten, maybe elementary school, and then I don't see any emphasis on academic excellence. And if we just want to prepare kids for work, there's plenty of non-educational organizations that will help them do that. So I speak against the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. I would just ditto Member Carey's comments. I made most of my comments in committee, but I'll just leave it at that. If people would like to hear my comments, they were made in committee. I definitely speak against the motion, and I would echo the concerns of Member Carey.
Member Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about kids being kids. I'm always saying more playtime in kindergarten, for heaven's sakes. But I think that I did support this one because we were assured that we were not going to be beholden to a certain kind of program. Like, we were going to make the choices, and the LEAs were going to get to make the choices. And the bigger issue really is access. I mean, we've got our kids on the Wasatch Front here that can access internships and all kinds of opportunities. And I'm with you. I don't care about the elementary stuff, but in our high schools, we have kids. I know everyone's trying to not to use this word equity, but the opportunities are inequitable, and they don't get the same as our kids on the Wasatch Front. And this would provide at least some opportunity and exposure to that.
Thank you, Member Davis. Member Norton.
One of the things that I would like to bring to this conversation is I too have a great love for the innocence of children, and it breaks my heart to see some of those dramatic changes that have happened as I look at my fifth graders, but that's the world. However, for as long as I remember, those little kindergarten and first graders want to grow up and be a policeman, or they want to grow up and be a fireman. They have a natural curiosity for work and for the things that their parents may or may not do, or the other people that they see in the communities. And so I think I don't think we're getting them ready to go into an internship at that age, but I do think that it's good for them to see that there's lots of kinds of work and lots of kinds of opportunities for them, even if they live in a rural community, to that they can still participate in and learn about. And then the other thing is the importance of the life skills of responsibility and persistence and trustworthiness, which are another part of the world of work that I think these internships can bring home to all of our students. But I think it's important that we continue to teach those life skills in our elementary schools, and to support what they're learning at their home, because I feel like we probably all can see that the work ethic in our country has dropped significantly, and that's something that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Member Norton. Other lights? Vice Chair.
I just wanted to be in line, but I mean.
Was Member Klein up first?
Go, let Member Klein go.
Okay.
Of course, I would have to hit her button. There we go.
All right, so I also researched the website, Pathful Connect, and so many concerns on there, not the least of which is the incredible amount of data mining the data that it collects on the students. Says identifies key interests, values, and skills to guide career exploration process and recommend potential careers. So it is leading them into these workforce pipelines into certain areas at very young ages. They have this whole section just for junior children, so K-12 or K through 5, where this is focused, and the fact that they're collecting things about their values, I think goes right directly against state code, because I doubt there's any kind of parental consent required for this. It just collects it behind the scenes while they're working. It's getting them to earn credentials towards the workplace, which then that becomes their currency into the workplace. And that I just think that's highly inappropriate when they should be working on their academic grades and not workforce readiness or workforce credentials even. They have two different payment plans here, the bronze plan and the platinum plan, both of which allow students who send and receive private messages from adults, strangers in the corporate worlds. We're paying $400,000 to give strangers access to our children in private messaging with that capability. And there's just so many red flags with this. I cannot support this.
Thank you, Member Klein. Member Hart, Vice Chair Hart.
So when I heard about this program, I did some research myself, and many of our students do not have access. It is so easy to forget that so many of our students are outside the Wasatch Front, outside Silicon Slopes. This whole notion that this is the opposite of children having their childhood and playing. Every child talks and thinks about, I'm going to be a firefighter. There's no dichotomy between talking about what you might do when you're grown versus having a childhood. Quite frankly, I'm interested in the middle and high school aspects of this. I'm interested in getting those resources to students. I'm interested in those students having opportunities to learn about different parts of the workforce. We just got done talking about the success criteria, the success sequence, which includes getting a job, but then we turn around and say we're going to not make a resource available, not force a resource, not force involvement with a resource, but not make a resource available. That's, I'm just going to call out that contradiction right here and now. So I think this is a great tool to make available. I would never in a million years say that students should access a resource that their parents aren't aware of and consent to. That isn't an issue. The question here is whether this is a resource that our students could benefit from. All those other things are just details. They are not what we're deciding on here. And the answer for me is that students benefit when they have access to real world people in the real world that are doing exactly what we know to be successful, and that is work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hart. Member Wood.
Can you explain to me how the funding works? So we had 400,000 now, but it looks like it's a subscription base. It's 12 months. If we get districts that start to use this, now are they forced to pay the fee? How does it, once we get past the 12 months, what next?
I should defer, and I will say that, well, I'll come back to the other elements but on the funding side, it's a 1-year subscription, and so that's the extent of the commitment. But Talia or Brecken, are you able to handle that? And I know I'm not quite sure about how that money, the logistics of how that subscription works for LEAs that want to participate.
And what happens past the 12 months, I'd like to know.
Oh, right. And my understanding is nothing is past the 12 months unless
Okay, so it's just a
unless we
single
renew.
year.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Talia, yes, thank you
And
for
on
joining
one
us.
side note, my 3-year-old grandson wants to be a dietitian when he grows up so he can take bones out of people's feet. So they are thinking about work even at 3.
Thank you, Talia.
Talia Longhurst, Director of Career and Technical Education here at USBE. This is one-time funding. It would, the money would only cover 1 year, and our goal is to see how it works, to see, and our focus is around grades 9 through 12. Hopefully, some middle schools, junior high schools might be interested, but we're really looking at just grades 9 through 12 at this point in time. But we need to see how it works here in Utah. We know there's been success in other states. We have tried some pilots here in Utah that have been well received, very small bits of access for certain schools just to see what they think and give us some feedback. But this is one time, and then we'll have to discuss where we go from here. We know that there are some industry groups who are interested in seeing this be successful and have expressed some interest in working with us. So the opportunities are wide open from here on out.
Member Green, you're next.
Yeah, this is for Chair Moss or maybe Member Straight. Did they say what class this goes? Like, is this a class that this would fall under, or is this, how do you engage with this in the school setting?
Okay, so let's say you teach a drama class, and you know, they might bring someone on, like the example they gave was someone who does lighting, who works in the movie industry, and they come on and they talk about what they do, how they do it, the different effects of lighting. It's just basically a way to provide an opportunity for students to see themselves as successful.
So just to clarify, they bring professionals in to
But they don't bring it.
Or is it virtual?
It's virtual because if you live out in Roosevelt, probably not movie industry out there, although there could be. But anyway, it's provided for anyone who has an interest in that. And yeah, so it could be for the whole state. And they have it broke down into areas. But it's very individualized towards our state. Am I getting all this right, Chair Moss?
That's my understanding, and yeah, I'll
And just
go
to
ahead, back
clarify
to
then, so
Member Green.
so the student would sign up for this, they would sign up for Pathful Connect, correct?
Correct.
And they would do that outside of school hours, or is this facilitated in their XLT class, or?
So yeah, can I answer, or did you want to?
Go ahead,
Member
please.
Straight. So just some clarity. I had no discussion or interest in pushing this into elementary schools. I have no interest in doing it on an opt-out basis. We are talking about opportunities for high schoolers to conduct internships potentially if they want to. And I was just out at Representative Welton's classroom, I don't know, about a month ago, and I was visiting with him, and he asked me to, take over his class and chat for a bit, which is always fun. And I asked him the question I think all of us probably ask: what would you have liked to have better in your schools? What can we do for you? Whatever. The number one thing was, I wish I had known about career opportunities earlier, and including middle school is what they said. Career planning is not the only or most important part of school for me. I'm just sharing my views because I was kind of involved in some of this. It is, however, an opportunity for kids to find something they love academically and transfer it into something that might be a career for them. I loved history. I ended up in poli-sci and then law, right? Kids are designers, the ones that are more creative than me. They learn about animation. So for me, this is not a process to bring industry what they need. I'm into industry. My clients are industry. For me, this is about opportunity for students to say, hey, that's pretty cool. And now, gee, could I make a living at it? What would that look like? And there are different stages of that. You first find out what an animator does. Then maybe you have an animator, piped in. If your teacher says, I'd sure like to have these guys talk to somebody at Disney's Imagineering, and then that person pops up on your screen and says, hey, let me tell you what I do. And then as you get older in high school, you might actually be able to work on a project or get an internship with somebody that's not down your street or in your neighborhood. That, to me, is the beauty of it. It's entirely driven by student interest. So, I actually have an amendment at some point, unless other people have, questions or concerns. But, yeah, I see a couple lights. So I'll come back to that. My intent, though, is to limit this to high school and middle school, make sure it's an opt-in basis by a student for actual interaction and data, and to have safety protocol. I see a lot of hands. We'll get to you. Let me just finish my comment. That's what I'm envisioning with this. If a teacher decides to pipe somebody in and talk about it, there's no data, there's no survey. This is not something that becomes a, kind of a standard practice. Everybody has to do it. If you get to the point where you want as a student to be engaged in some further fashion with a company, then you would have only an opt-in with the appropriate data safeguards. That's how I see it. So I can hold on a formal amendment because I see some lights, or maybe not, and I can just make an amendment.
Going on and off like it's
All right, let me make an amendment then, and we can talk about that.
one that's on right now is member straight.
Okay. Did you want to address that, or should I make the amendment and we
Please
can talk
make
about
the
it?
amendment.
All right, my amendment is that Pathful, let's see. Where is our actual motion? For I thought it was. Oh, geez, why is that the motion? Why is that the? Okay. All right, we've gotten ahead of ourselves. Some of this concept we've heard from our CTE folks that about this Pathful Connect. That is a specific vendor, which I understood was being proposed as a sole source or something to that effect. But I'm hearing we need to make that a. Do you want to address the question of whether we need an RFP or sole source on this? Anybody? We want to do this right. That's kind of what came up from our staff when we talked about the concept. But if we need to do the RFP, then this is just one of who knows how many might jump in. Deputy Jones? Do you
Right.
wanna-
So, Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. So it's not necessarily an issue at all that you're proposing this, in that there's a particular company named in this. However, before doing or saying or anything, publicly about that particular company, it should only be about the software. Because to your point, Chair, we can pursue this as if it's a sole source, right? But until we know for sure that it can be a sole source, then it needs to
Okay.
be just about the software.
Good, okay.
And
I
we
had understood
don't
that
know-
had already been
you're
decided. So
fine.
let's
Yeah,
change
you're
the
fine.
amendment. We'll say for discretionary funds for software to provide, and I'm sorry, I'd taken that as having already been analyzed. Software to provide virtual work-based learning opportunities for high school and middle school students on an opt-in basis, subject to appropriate data protocols. Does that, I'm getting 2 thumbs up that I'm framing that right? Used for a software platform, I think is what we want. This is not just software you plug in, it's a platform you access. Okay, so up in software, we'll say a software platform to provide virtual work-based learning opportunities for high school and middle school students on an opt-in basis, subject to appropriate data protocols. I guess that is proposed by me as a friendly amendment, and I will accept it, but the body has to accept. Is there objection to that friendly amendment? Or, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, this is an amendment to the finance amendment, correct? Which had not been seconded. All right. So this is my motion to amend the Finance Committee recommendation, which does require a second. Seconded, and let's put that out for discussion. Any discussion to that motion? Is your light? Sorry. Okay. Yeah, Member Carey.
Yeah, Chair, would you accept a friendly amendment that instead of our data protocols, perhaps appropriate data privacy protocols?
You bet. That is friendly on my part. Any objection from the body? Yes. Objection to that or something else?
I think it's broader than privacy protocols. It's safety protocols too.
So safety and data.
But maybe there's other pieces. That's why I thought protocols was, I don't know if you want to add, but it's just broader than privacy.
Fair enough. I mean, that's friendly for me too. Let's see if anybody in the body objects, but that's privacy and safety protocols. Then
Some of
is
the worst adult
proposal.
stalkers stalk online.
Sure.
So keep that in mind.
Yep. Okay. Those are both friendly for me. Any objection from the body to those friendlies? Okay. I
What
think,
oh, sorry,
yes. Member Lear.
one slight more correction. To include, is that okay?
To include,
Appropriate,
oh, sure.
to include, so that it could be to include appropriate
We
data
take
privacy.
out subject.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah, and to get rid of subject. That is
Take
feels
subject, the
better to
word
me.
subject out. Okay, yeah, that's definitely a friendly. Okay, so the motion as amended with the friendlies is that the board approve using $400,000 one-time funds from the Federal Mental Release Fund from the board's discretionary funds to be used as for a software platform to provide virtual work-based learning opportunities for high school and middle school students on an opt-in basis to include appropriate data privacy and safety protocols. Seeing no other lights, let's vote. We are missing 4, 3, 2. We're missing 2. We're missing 2 votes. Down to 1. Okay, voting is complete. That passes 14 to 1 with the nay vote being Member Klein. Thank you very much. Back to Chair. Did I wrap that item up? Did we vote on? No, we do need to go back. Jeez, where am I? Okay. As amended then, the motion is essentially what we just completed there. So the board approves 400,000 one time, et cetera, et cetera. Any further discussion of that motion as amended? If not, let's vote.
The same thing, it's just that it had,
The two-step. Three.
I made,
3 left. 2. 2 left.
who's not voted?
1 left. I'm not calling people out, but you know who you are. One left.
I voted right. It's not me, right?
Oh, I don't know. We got 1 left who hasn't voted.
Straight?
We're still looking for your vote.
No, it's okay. You could have already touched it.
Okay, voting's complete. That passes 13 to 2 with the nay votes being members Bogus and Klein. Thank you. Back to Chair Norton. I believe
I
there's
had
one more.
The committee recommends that the board approves using $167,500 from the tax delay fund from the board's discretionary funds to pay for an educational specialist for 1 year for the student support services section.
I see no lights. Do I? Member Klein's, you have.
Member Klein? I would speak against the motion.
Further lights? Let's vote. Two more. One more.
I'll double check and make sure you pushed your button.
Who are we missing there?
Randy,
Member Booth, I think we're missing you, sir.
you may have pushed it, but sometimes you got it.
There we go. Voting's complete. That passes 13 in favor, 1 abstaining, and 1 no. The abstention being Member Bogus, and the no vote being Member Klein. I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on.
I just have a motion.
Okay. Okay, that concludes that item, not finance. Member
Yeah,
Vice Chair
I
Earl?
want to make a motion that to postpone, 3 items for research did not move out of committee, but I'd like those postponed till February for further discussion. And I could talk about what those are, those math fluency, the descriptive study of SEL, and then the one about school-age boys in Utah. So
Is that a motion to bring them back here in February or back to committee?
back here. The cell phone holders that's getting held. The legislature's looking at things like that, so I'm not going to touch that. It's on. Sorry. So it would be 4.4. It was the second thing that just talked about discretionary fund requests. So it would be, we passed 1 out of 2, but then the other 3 items there. So I'm asking that they be postponed till February's board meeting.
So, do we have a second? It's been seconded. Any discussion of that motion?
I know.
Do we know which items, Member Lear?
Yes, I had 2 questions. Could we not at least consider the cell phone issue? I really don't care what the legislature does and think that we have more insight into what happens in schools.
You can, after this, if you wanted to move that item forward, you can do that. I just didn't.
Is it a friendly amendment to add it to this?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I would like to add all of them to at least be discussed by finance.
Oh, no, I want it back in committee. I mean, not in committee, back in board.
Back in the board meeting,
Okay.
wherever it's.
Yeah, I'm great with that.
Wherever it's going for
Sure.
here.
So, all right, let's make clear for board members, which are the items? Do we have those up on the board?
That would be all the
that
remaining
were-
items, right?
Yes,
All the
that we're
remaining
not
items being-
considered to move forward.
And I did have another question, but it completely escaped me, so I may have to come
So
back.
these are not in our backup or the motion, correct? These are items that were considered by finance, were not brought forward, and are not in our backup.
They are.
Or they are in the
They are in the
backups.
backup. They were not moved forward from committee.
Right,
And I was
okay.
asking for consideration here in the full board, but I'm asking for that to be postponed until next month's
In
meeting.
February.
Yes.
So does anybody have questions about what those items are? I just want to make sure folks know what we're talking about. Okay, so, and that includes the cell phone item. There was money proposed for cell phone holders in schools, right? That was the, okay. Okay. Yes, Member Lear.
What is the window for asking for these studies? Is it any time or is it?
Any board member, and I think Scott says this continually, any board member at any time can make a request for funding. This mineral lease funding specifically
It's
has to do with
ongoing.
research
Gotcha.
or innovation, that kind of a thing. That's why I asked for these research projects to just inform some of the things we have going on.
Thank you.
But anybody can ask. We have $2 million still sitting in there.
There's no window, there's no.
Well, no, but we've got the end of our
Fiscal
you've got
year. The end of our
the end of the
fiscal
year.
Gotcha.
fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The motion is then to postpone consideration of all items for discretionary funding that were not brought forward from finance from today to February's board meeting. Any final discussion? If not, let's vote. Five left. We know y'all want to stay here till 2 in the morning, but let's get the votes done. Yes.
Lunch is on, it's a buffet, but things, and they're picking it back up at 1:30, and it's got burners.
They're picking it back up from here?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to be there by
they
1?
take their lunch back.
So
at
that
1:30.
voting's concluded. That passes 12-3. The no votes being members Wood, Klein, and Norton. And I'm just hearing a little bit about lunch. Are we wanting to do that? I think we can try to finish finance. They're here till 1:30?
We have to be done with eating at 1:30.
Right.
Because it's
Right.
a hot thing.
Got it. So if we can get done by 1 or so, or 10-1, then we can go eat. But we'll have to, let's see if we can finish finance. I don't know if we can, but
right.
2 items, back to Chair Norton.
Okay. Oh, snap. Are we on the 4.6? The committee recommends?
Resolution.
Okay. The committee recommends that the board approve the Utah State Board of Education resolution regarding school trust lands and funds, draft number 4.
Member Reel.
Thanks, Chair. I have a question about this motion. Is in looking over the drafts, I noticed that we took out the acknowledgement that not all suitable for all the land was suitable for development. And I wondered about that because it's, as far as I know, and maybe someone on staff can elaborate, there is land that is not developable because of, you know, scenic beauty or because it is native land, etc. And some of those lands have actually brought in a lot of funds for us. For example, like the Grand Staircase has brought in dollars into the fund. So I was wondering why we removed that completely from this, the new draft that we have, the latest one.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. The language that sits here is, if you go onto their site, this is the language of what they do. And it does, what you're talking about is referenced in there, right? Outdoor recreation, forest management. There are things that, you're right, they're not, you can't build on it. You can't do mineral stuff. So it's there. It broadens it out though to the things that the trust lands entities do. And it takes it right from their site. So that's why, so it was more comprehensive of the things they're actually engaged in.
Is that the latest draft? Oh, I thought I saw in the amendment that that paragraph was pulled. No. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, I thought that
it
paragraph was pulled.
It was stated what they did instead of making more of a political statement about these lands are, you know, environmentally or whatever. It just says, this is what we do, right? These are the lands, this is what we do. It's the forest management, it's the outdoor recreation, which does bring in quite a bit of money, right? With the usage of that. So livestock grazing.
You're thinking that instead of by saying outdoor recreation, you're thinking that includes undevelopable lands, non-developable lands like
It
true
would, and
public
so would some of these others. Mineral extraction could be on undevelopable lands as well. So.
All right. Oh. And I don't know if anyone can confirm because I thought that it was my understanding that, for example, the land that was acquired through the trust on Grand Staircase has actually brought in a lot of revenue into the fund. And so I didn't know if anyone knew the answer to that.
Do we have anybody who knows the answer to that question? Paula, maybe? Thank you, Paula, if you want to weigh in.
So the question, I think, is if the Grand Staircase Escalante exchange, it did. The exchange of land in that exchange traded some lands that potentially were not going to be able to generate revenue into some areas that have.
Thank you, Paula. Back to Member Reel. Sure.
I guess my only follow-up would be, do we feel like with the removal of that more specific piece about these lands that are true public lands that cannot be developed on. If we remove that and make it a little bit more subtle, is that going to hurt anything in the overall picture? Because if there is opportunity to have exchanges that bring in that revenue, that even if it is undevelopable land, it could be important to have and have that noted in there.
Got it. Thank you, Member Reel. Member Bogus?
Yes, sir. So, I spoke against this in committee. I voted against it in committee, and I just think that when we're taking official USBE positions, that we should just, actually, I have a substitute motion.
Okay.
I move that the board enter an official position of support for the increase from 4 to 5%. And be done with this instead of debating this resolution ad nauseum. I think we should enter an official position of support for the legislative action and call it a day.
Is there a second? Second from Member Lear, and that is now, I want one clarified question. Is that not up for consideration later or in our legislative action items, the increase from 4 to 5%, or is it from 5 to 6? We already went from 4 to 5.
It's from 4 to 5, sir. I do believe it's 4 to 5.
4 to 5. We've discussed this. I've just lost track. Did we enter a vote of support for that? I think we might have. Paula, we already went on the record supporting that increase from 4 to 5, which is a constitutional amendment, correct?
So in the legislative session, you did support the bill that puts it on the ballot to move from 4 to 5%. That's
Okay,
correct.
so that's been considered. We went on the record. We voted to support. It was passed out. It's on the ballot for an amendment.
So then, sir, I would question, what is the need for a resolution if we have already entered a position of support?
Well, the 4 to 5 is different from this, right? So, I mean, we got two separate issues. The 4 to 5 allows the trust to kick off 5% of the body for distribution, right, holding the rest. So it is connected when the part where we talk about fair distribution between current and future. There's other stuff in here that's separate. So I guess that on that point, there is a connection. This expresses a broader position, I think, on, that we support fairness between building the body of the trust and also distributing for current needs. Whereas the other is a specific one-time, proposal to go from 4 to 5% of kicking it off, right? So I guess that's my understanding. But
So,
go ahead.
Well, if my memory is incorrect, if that position has been entered, I would withdraw my motion. But I don't believe this resolution is needed. I believe it's heavily politically charged, and we discussed that in committee, and I don't support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Bogus. Member Klein?
Yes, so I would support not having a resolution. I don't think that there's a need for it, as long as we have already made our position clear on upping the numbers. Also, there is a lot of I have a lot of amendments that I would make to this resolution, and I've talked to some about my concerns, and there's just a lot of ambiguity built into it, a lot of terms without definitions. There's even aspects like the whereas clause that says, whereas the Enabling Act and the Utah State Constitution require school trust growth to be managed consistent with trust principles, including that the funds are managed for the support of common schools with a commitment to fair and equitable distributions to both current and future school children. Where exactly in the Enabling Act and the Constitution does it are those claims backed up? That it even says those things.
Is that a request for anybody in particular? Is that to?
If someone can show me exactly where in the Enabling Act or the Constitution that it says.
I don't see. Okay, hold on.
I don't.
I know, but I'm seeing if anybody wants to answer that question. I don't see any response, but we'll consider that a comment then for the debate.
Yeah, I don't believe.
Other Member Davis then?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're feels like we're reading a lot into this, and probably because there's a lot of language in this thing. You know, to Member Klein's point, I felt like there was a lot of language. However, a lot of the language was fixed, if you will. I mean, the basic point of this resolution is to say that the money will be used for school children and not for other people's all ideas of how these trust lands will be used for other development or whatever, business, whatever. The second one was that the money will be distributed equitably between, and we even took that word out because someone had a problem with the word. So we tried to explain it without using the precise word, which is a problem when you try to remove words from your dictionary. But we tried to explain it then that the money for current children and future children and past children, like the distributions shouldn't be all hoarded up now to give to someone later or vice versa. They should be equitably distributed amongst generations of all children. These are the points of this resolution. Is the language a little wordy? Yeah. But this is why this resolution is important.
Thank you, Member Davis. Member Klein? And we need to tee up, we need to get to a vote after this. But
Okay,
Member Klein?
so it says that the trust is managed prudently and for the public, prudently and profitably for the public education beneficiaries. Doesn't say school children, it says public education beneficiaries, which could literally be anybody. Anybody.
Okay. So the motion before on the floor, Member Bogus, did you withdraw the motion? Okay. All right. So we are speaking to the underlying motion. Member Klein, back to you.
I would make a substitute motion to I don't know what the word is, repeal or repeal the existing resolution and not go forward with any resolution.
Sorry. You mean to I think that's basically, well, is there a current resolution? We have one on the floor for consideration. You're talking about repealing an existing one, not this one? Okay. So I don't know if we have that before us. Is there, we're talking about a currently existing, is this an update? If I could ask Paula, this is an update, right, of the existing resolution that we've had on the, out there for a while? Okay. All right. So the motion then as a substitute, was that framed as a substitute? Member Klein? Okay. Is to repeal the underlying resolution rather than amend as has been proposed here. Member Reel? Oh, do we have a second? Second. Let's see. We got, they got you.
I didn't second. Oh, okay.
What are we waiting on now?
I'm sorry. I think we're getting a lot of communication coming in. So the motion on the floor is to revoke the underlying trust lands resolution for which amendments had been proposed, to revoke rather than to amend. Any final discussion to that motion? Okay, let's vote. Motions to revoke. Just to make clear, I see some vote flipping and questioning. Right, repeal. Sorry, oops. Can we get, okay, yeah, because that is a significant difference. Instead of appealing, the motion is to repeal. You're doing great. I'm sorry. We're just throwing a million things at you at once here. Thank you for raising that. I didn't catch the. Thank you. Okay. Repeal the existing resolution and continue without a board resolution for trust lands. Got it. Okay, so that's now up for a vote. Yeah, sorry. Not sure I did. I got it. Okay. All right, 4 left. We got four people that aren't hungry.
Oh, do we have to vote again?
Mm-hmm. Three left. I think the holidays, we're still in a holiday coma. One more.
Oh, okay.
Is that? All right. There we go. That motion fails by a vote of 12-3. We're back to the underlying motion. Let's see. Could you put the question back out, Member Klein? There was a motion. There was a question raised, and if we can't answer it right now, we'll move forward with that as a comment. But if we do have somebody,
It would be Real and then Klein. Well, Klein first, then sorry.
Okay, my question was where exactly is it stated in the Enabling Act and the Constitution, what it claims in the whereas clause that I read?
I'm not sure we have anybody for that. So seeing no response, we will take that as a rhetorical question.
No,
Which
I
has
want an
value.
answer.
We can't do it, Member Klein, unless somebody has the answer on the spot. We're not going to slow down the vote. Some of these questions have to be raised before if we're going to do the research that's necessary. So I understand if that means that
Well,
a member
I
is
just
not
want to make
comfortable.
sure that it is an accurate, that the claims that they are making in this whereas clause are actually true about what it says in the Enabling Act and the Constitution, so that we're not passing something that is just not accurate.
It's a great question. It's one that we can do in advance or on our own. We're all free to read the Enabling Act. We can Google it while we sit here. I'm not hearing an immediate response. I'm certainly
So
trying to
if
get
we
one,
pass,
but
if we pass this and then discover that that's not accurate, then what?
then somebody would bring it back. Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's just that we have some questions about everything, and sometimes we're able to get a quick answer, and other times we're not if it's raised on the fly. And so that's where we are. So moving to the next, who's got another
Me.
question, comment? Member Real?
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion and I appreciate getting my questions answered. Thank you. And I'd like to call the question.
Question has been called. That requires a 2/3 vote or a showing of no lights. Member Real, do you want to go proceed to a vote? I don't.
That'd be great.
I think on the motion to call the question, I don't think we need.
I don't
it.
need to make a motion if we're ready to go.
Okay, yeah, I see no lights, and so if that's all right, we will proceed to a vote. Hold on, let's frame up the. Motion is that the board approves the resolution regarding school trust lands and funds. Draft 4. Voting is open. There we go. Voting is concluded. That passes 12-3. The no votes being members Green, Bogus, and Klein. Back to you. She withdrew the motion to call the question because there were no lights, and so we proceeded to vote on the underlying. Okay. Yes, correct. Back to Chair Norton.
It's our last one.
Okay.
This is from our last our last agenda item, which is 413, Board Policy 2007, Board Member Participation in Legislative Proceedings. The committee recommends that the board approves Board Policy 2007, Draft 2.
Discussion to that motion. I see Member Hymas. Is he first? Okay, Member Hymas, then Member Laird.
Thank you. You might have seen the draft 3 in backup, and I'd like to bring that forward as a substitute, but I also have amendments on that draft 3.
Okay, so the motion is to bring forward draft 3 and approve. Do we have a second? I will second it. So that's on the floor now. Back to the maker.
Thank you.
And please remind me if I'm not going back to the maker of the motion. I think the holidays have just thrown us into a deep rust. So I apologize, but back to you, Member Hymas.
Thank you. So there are some changes from draft 2 to draft 3. A few of those for clarity. One being the policy name itself, board member participation in legislative proceedings. So I wanted to focus that on legislative proceedings. And so some of the wording changed there. I know some things were made, some amendments were made in committee. One that I thought were kind of redundant, and so I removed one being on lines 3 and 4, others on 6, 8, 10. Now I'm just shouting numbers, right? But they're in there. But one of the amendments, if we're ready to look at amendments, Chair, I'd like to just put forth a couple of amendments.
You got the floor, so if you want to.
Well, let me just bring forth
You've
a couple of
you got
amendments.
the floor, and so yes, if you
Yeah.
want to propose.
I'd like to strike section 5. It was pointed out that between 4 and 6, where 5 exactly lies, it is again redundant. So 4 and 6 kind of cover that. And then section 7, I rewrote this. I don't love it. There's been some feedback on, hey, here's where you can go to get these. I mean, it's all online. And so I think as board members, we have access to this already. So I would, although I did add section 7, I'm now asking to remove section 7. Because I believe anytime that a board member speaks in a legislative committee or other meeting, it's done online or it's accessible.
It's accessible, but if people don't know that it happened, they don't. Hold on. Sorry, I can take this mic.
Yeah. So anyway,
Let's-
those are my
we'll open it
2
up.
amendments to draft 3. So technically I have 3 things going here.
Okay, so the proposed amendment, draft 3 from backup, is on the floor with 2 amendments from Member Hymas to remove sections 5 and 7. I'm sorry, they're not on the floor. That's the motion. Seconded.
Okay.
I thought we had a second. Okay.
You seconded,
I seconded.
But then he added amendments to
All right.
and I spoke to them before.
And those have been seconded by Member Bogus. To you, Member Bogus. I think. Is she first or Member Lear? Excuse me.
Member August. Well, Member Earl, and then.
Do we need to vote on this?
Well,
Are you speaking to the substitute?
I would make an amendment to the substitute.
Wait, but
So the
wait, item
substitute
one.
is draft 3. The amendment to that is to have
So are we
those
speaking
two.
to the amendments that
Yes,
you
the
just?
amendments.
Okay.
What's on the
Okay,
floor is
got
the
it, got it.
amendments to remove sections 5 and 7.
Okay, so
then
after that, I have.
Member Lear, and then over to.
Carol.
I have a substitute motion. I,
I'm looking to the parliamentarians. We've got an amendment to a substitute is on the floor. The question is whether there's another motion to substitute.
Can you have
So we can't have it then because it's a sub and an amendment.
Okay.
What
all right.
about, can I go back to an amendment to the initial motion?
No.
We got two out there, so I think we
Gotcha.
got to consider Member Hymas's two amendments to remove 5 and 7 first. So nothing going to hold off Member Lear? Okay. Was somebody else in line to speak to the proposed amendments, the remove 5 and 7?
So I appreciate Member Hymas's work on this. Just a quick comment would be that while there is documentation without notification, board members don't know where to go or that it may have even occurred. And so I do think maybe where it says in section 7, shall receive an informational summary, I would move to amend the amendment and say to strike paragraphs 5 and have number 7 read, and each board member shall receive notice that a presentation was given. And where to find the copy, a link to the legislative, whatever that might be.
Okay. I think that's a question for the body. The next slide is Member Norton, I think.
I just wanted to comment that I appreciate the work that Board Member Hymas has done. I think that the new language adds great clarity to the motion, and I think that the careful, calculated way in which he removed information made it easier to work with, and I am grateful for the time that he put into this. So I fully support it.
Okay, I got to go back here for some traffic. So did we get a motion that was then? I thought it was just a comment, but. Yes, it is a motion. Oh, so that's, I think, out of order, isn't it? No, sir, it's an amendment to the amendment. To Member Hymas's amendment? But that's a substitute to the underlying. That's okay? So let me just ask for clarity, because I want to be fair about this. There is technically, we determined a while ago, no actual motion to substitute. It is a motion to amend with a substitution. And the difference is you're substituting entirely versus a section. But are we being consistent? Okay, I'm just making sure. I want to be fair when we ruled out, I think it was Member Lear's motion. So hers as a substitute was not appropriate, but the amendment to the amendment of the substitute was okay. I'm going to talk to these guys. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm just want to make sure I go to my program. I know you're smart, but I want to make sure I get the official.
Oh, you were looking at me.
I'm sorry. I was looking through you.
I know.
It wasn't very nice. Okay. All right. We got it. Sorry. I want to make sure we're fair. So that's on the floor. Speaking to Member Bogus's amendment. Member Davis.
I need to be hot. Thank you. Can we just have the language put up on the screen that's being stricken? I'm having machine issues.
Member Klein seconded Member Bogus's motion, so it is properly on the floor now that we're sure it's in order. Do we have the language up there?
Board Member Bogus?
His was a substitute, and then he amended his substitute. So that's
And
as
then there
far
was
as
an
you can
amendment
go.
to the amendment.
Yeah, but we have one too many amendments with Bogus's.
Yep.
Hold on. That was my question. I'm sorry. Just freeze.
Yeah.
We'll turn to our parliamentarians because they take out personal considerations and just give us a yes.
Issued a substitute motion and amended the substitute motion, and then I amended the amendment. So we're on a
That's
substitute
what we
motion
had.
to
Yeah.
amendments D.
The ruling was that that's appropriate. I like to double check. That's correct. Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. We got a ruling. We're back to debating it. Okay. Thanks for asking. I always like double checking. It's the safest route. All right. Where are we? Do we have lights? Any other lights to the motion? We're getting the language up there. Okay.
maybe just close around that language. I don't know that you're not on mic, so keep I'm so sorry, ma'am. It's okay. I just can't. So yes, I do believe that is correct. I think it would be clearer to put quotes or before the word each and after the word given.
Okay, do we have quotes?
I don't know that it needs it. I'm just wondering for clarity because I had to read it myself.
Okay. It's a requested friendly, is it? Okay.
Especially in a legislative chamber.
Okay, I guess the friendly's not accepted, so. All right, I think we've got it teed up here. Member Bogus's motion to amend the amendment is to keep and amend paragraph 7 to read that each board member shall receive notice that a presentation was given. Any comment, question? Member Wood, sorry.
Hit the thing.
Is this a question? Is this deleting all of 7 and just leaving this single line? Is that your intent, Member Bogus?
Yes, ma'am. I agree with Member Hymas's reasoning for pulling that, but I do think that we don't know where to find the documentation unless we are aware that the presentation was given. And so I think this synthesizes it.
Could we put presentation or testimony? Just to add in the two lines that were there.
Clarify that. Anytime any board member gives a testimony, you want, okay. Oh, okay.
I would offer that that is a friendly so that we don't go 3 deep. So without objection,
Thank you for the assist. All right, so that's a friendly. It's on the floor. We've debated the motion then from Member Bogus to amend the amendment is to keep and amend paragraph 7 to read that each board member shall receive notice that a presentation or testimony was given. Seeing no further lights. Nope. Member Klein.
Is that added into the existing paragraph? No.
Or is it, that's all 7 will say, because it leaves out some important context of, when it's a board, when there's a presentation given on behalf of the board. It says each board member shall receive notice that a presentation or testimony was given, maybe in behalf of the board.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Member Klein, I do believe that read in context, it does make sense. So if you look at 5, 6, 7, and then 8, if it falls into that sequential pattern, I do believe the context allows for the clarity. Someone is welcome to disagree with me. That is my opinion.
Okay. Let's see. Member Lear?
I more have a question for the body. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I'll try. After having gotten this party started, it isn't really the result I'd hoped for, but what would be meaningful to me would be to have it say, to get the notice before the board member speaks, so that there's no appearance of stealth, but it's rather information for all board members. So if board members don't agree with that person's proposed presentation, that board member could be also in attendance at some meeting and present a different point of view. So in the spirit of discussion here, and maybe it's to board member Bogus, shall receive notice that a presentation or testimony will be given and the date. Would you oppose that? Just to avoid the appearance of stealth or surprise. Just in case anybody's thinking that that's the motive.
So, ma'am, I have no desire for stealth in this. And I don't know that I'm comfortable with your amendment yet. I need to think on that. But I would offer that since this is about official positions, that a contrary opinion to be offered on behalf of the board is a little weird.
No, and I, if I can respond, I'm not saying.
Please, well, with your
Please.
permission, sir.
Yes.
Contrary law, just saying sometimes things are characterized. And if board members knew in advance that a presentation was going to take off, they'd be able to hear the board member's explanation and be able to maybe provide additional information, maybe to provide a different characterization. Not that everything's black and white. So I'm just thinking, to avoid the appearance of stealth or lack of transparency, that knowing in advance would be an ideal situation.
I have no objection to that, but I would offer that during the legislative session, being in these committee meetings, sometimes people are called on in the moment. And so while I support the idea, I would be amenable to language without objection that says, if possible,
Sure.
something to that end. But I don't think we should make it absolute, because I do think people are called on in the moment, and I don't want to.
That sets up a good faith presumption, and I'm in, that would help. It, again, not ideal, but
I'm
but
sorry. Oh,
better.
I would leave it to the body without objection if you have language, ma'am.
I would say the
Need anything? Need to bring something?
and so I had the floor. Can I make a motion?
Yes. Back to you.
Okay.
So you
Actually, she can't.
She can't.
She can can't.
suggest language without objection, but there cannot be a motion.
Sorry, that's right. We are still on the.
No, it's a procedural thing.
Yeah, sorry. No. We're just out of amendments. That's all. Friendlies are still okay.
You can suggest language without objection, but if there is objection, without objection.
Okay. So back to member Bogus's, and then we probably got to get to lunch. Let's see what we can do here. The motion is to amend the amendment to keep and amend paragraph 7 to read, each board member shall receive notice that a presentation or testimony was given. Is that where we ended up?
Yep.
Okay. Let us vote. Yeah, we're getting to that. We got 5 who have not voted yet. 3, 2, 1. Vice Chair Hart's not here, so voting is concluded. That passes 10-4. The no votes being members Lear, Straight, and Davis and Norton. Okay. We're back to member Hymas's motion to strike paragraphs 5 and 7, but amended with what we just passed from member Bogus, so that we keep 7 as amended. Floor is open, member Lear and member Klein. We are going to have to move quick. I think, let me just get a point of order, a point which trumps any other possible motion, because it's about food. I just want to know, do we just need to get our food from the buffet before 1:30 and then take our time eating it? Or is there are we going to run into trouble?
They're picking it up.
Right. So if we put it on our plates before 1:30 and they take away, we're good. Yes?
15 minutes to put it on the plate.
Okay. I think we can do that. We don't have to eat it by
No.
very
not gonna
tight
take it
technical
from-
question. Correct. All right. So we need to get in there and be able to dish ourselves up from the buffet by 1:30, but then we can take a half hour to eat. So back to member Klein, is it?
I think.
Where are we here? Member Lear, I'm sorry.
And and let me just say, I think I've made my point about stealth and honor and transparency. So I think I'll not make a motion.
Okay. Member Klein.
So I just wanted to amend that so that the board members also receive the notes from the presentation, because going on the legislative website doesn't always give you the notes of the presentation.
So point, just to clarify, what notes?
So if you're
Well-
doing a presentation, you have PowerPoints and then you have the
Oh,
notes.
The
within
materials that were used to present,
Uh-huh,
not notes taken during the presentation.
correct.
All right, you're talking about materials used in the presentation.
Right, like PowerPoint notes and the
Which can have
PowerPoints.
notes or not, but
Mhm.
yeah, if it has notes.
Because if you look it up on the legislative website, you may be able to see the PowerPoint and you may not be able to, or it may be really small. And you don't get the notes with
I
that.
see.
So it would be nice to have the full presentation, if there is one, sent to, along with the notice.
Okay. So that's a new motion, which is in order. Another motion to amend. Do we have that? Yeah, okay. Receive the speaker's materials for a presentation under paragraph 7, which
Correct.
would include the notes and anything that actually goes up on the presentation.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any comment, questions? Member Carey?
I just have a separate motion.
Okay. Let's vote. I'm sorry. Did we get a second? Seconded? Let's vote, unless there's lights. No, I don't see any. Okay. Four, 3, 2, 1. And we're there. That passes 12-3. The no votes are members Booth, member Hymas, and member Norton. Okay. All right. So we have now back to member Hymas's underlying motion to amend, which is to strike paragraph 5, and now we've received and voted on a motion to amend as to paragraph 7, as amended with member Klein's language. Keep a member in paragraph 7. Seeing no lights, let's vote. They're still getting there. Me too. All right. We got 2 left. What's that? Well, we got two votes left, 1 vote left. Is that member? Let's see. Who hasn't voted? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we have the underlying, I think we've got member Hymas's was a motion. No, that was a substitute motion, correct? That was an amendment. All right. Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot draft 3 was itself a substitute. Okay, so the substitute motion, which we have now been working on, is draft 3 that came out of member Hymas, and that now as amendment is up for discussion. Member Vice Chair Earl.
Can I do my amendment real quick, clean up? I have one more amendment. It's where it says the general goals of legislators. I'd like to strike that and put in the objective of the presentation. When we bring something to the legislature, it's not always, what do you guys want us to present to you? It's okay, tell us about your reading program, what's happening. So it's not the goals of the legislature we're presenting, it's the objectives of the presentation, whatever they're requesting. And so I just think there's 2 spots that it's in there. I just think that's a little more clear on what we're actually doing. They request something from us, but we're not meeting their goals.
Any objection? I hear that's a friendly. No objection. Okay. Back, the floor is open. We can vote unless, member Carey?
No, I just have a motion.
Okay. Floor is open. Well, this is the bottom, right? No, I'm sorry. We do have the objection.
No, it was out objection.
Yeah, that was without objection, so
Yeah. So we now have member Hymas's underlying motion as amended. So yeah, this would be the right time.
Thank you, Chair. I just, I'm concerned that the proposed policy conflicts with our existing bylaws. In order to discuss it, I'm going to make a motion to strike lines 5, 6, and 7 of the amended motion. And my concern is that our current bylaws say that only the chair and vice chairs may represent this board. And it looks like under the proposed policy, we're saying that the chair may appoint other members who are not vice chairs to represent the board. So I have spoken to Michelle and Ben, and their input may be valuable at this particular stage. But my understanding and my reading is that given provisions Roman numeral 6, 6A, Roman numeral 6, 7A, it is only the chair and vice chairs that may represent the board under our current bylaws.
AEG Buse, or did you want to address that? You don't have to, or Ben, but.
She's not clicked it.
Hold on, we got to get you live for the folks.
Well, but staff one is, it's already, it's broken because I clicked it just for the record. That too?
Okay.
There we
And
go.
can you reference the section of the bylaws
Yes,
when you address that?
I'd be happy to. In bylaws, section 5, subsection 2 says that board members' duties and responsibilities include other duties as assigned by the board chair. So that's one place in it. But then in another place in the board bylaws, in section 6, subsections 6A and 7A say that the board chair and vice chairs are the individuals who can act as official spokespersons for the board. So there's a conflict there.
Sorry, let's get to that. I'm sorry. Section or bylaw section 6, which is election of officers.
Yeah.
And then what's the subsection?
Subsection 6A.
6A.
That's under duties of the board chair. 6A.
I don't see. Maybe I'm looking at an old. Shoot.
Go to the website, 'cause I did the same.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Do we want to wait until you get your lunch? Because you may miss your lunch if you don't go get your lunch.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes, I guess. So let's.
Just make a motion.
Sounds good. We can just put it on hold. We're not really postponing. We're just taking a break. So, all right, we'll be back. We'll take 30 minutes or 35. We'll be back here at the top of the hour.
They'd have to amend the bylaws.
They are going to need to.
Notwithstanding the other sections, whatever.
I think that if you look.
We are back on the record. Sorry, that's a lawyer statement. We're back in the body, whatever. Okay, we were back on a motion from member Carey regarding policy 2007. So I will yield the floor back to member Carey. Trying to get it there.
Thank you, Chair. Just by way of summary, Chair, I had made a motion to strike lines 5 through 7, in that it was my understanding from reading the bylaws that only the chair and vice chairs may represent this board. And I believe before we broke for lunch, Assistant Attorney General Buse was giving a summary of the conflicting provisions in our bylaws. So if I may, I would ask that AAG Buse be able to finish her presentation on that.
Yes, thank you, AG Buse. Back to you.
Okay, I realize that some of you were looking at an old version of the bylaws, and so it's easiest to get the most recent one to go to the board's website on the State Board of Education website. And if you go to the board's section of it and scroll down towards the left side of the page, you'll find board bylaws, and it brings up the most recent version of it. And in it, there are 3 provisions, 2 of them about who can be an official spokesperson for the board, and then 1 of them about duties of board members in general. And so the one that's on duties of board members in general is section 5, subsection 3. And it says that one of the duties of board members in general are other duties as assigned by the board chair. Then if we go to section 6, which is the duties of the chair and the vice chairs, subsection 6A says one of the duties of the chair is to act as official spokesperson. And 7A says duties of the vice chairs is to act as official spokespersons. And so there is a conflict in there. Generally, when there's a conflict in laws, the more specific law supersedes the more general law. And so if we followed that general rule of statutory construction, the more specific would be the sections on the board chair and vice chairs being the only ones who are able to act as official spokespersons for the board. So that was the discussion that we had with board member Carey.
Thank you. And if I could ask a follow-up, I've tried to avoid debating any of this stuff or sharing an opinion because it's basically, giving the will of the body for what I need to do. But I do have a clarifying question. Does spokesperson mean that in all cases, or are there times at which, it says what it says, right? So I'm just going to follow whatever guidance you give. Do we know anything whether that means that I'm the only one or the vice chairs upon delegation? I guess that's just the language. There's no clarifying out there in terms of other interpretation. Okay.
I don't know what your practice has been in the past, whether you've delegated that beyond that.
Yeah.
There is a provision in there that there can be a delegation to other board members for running the board meeting.
Right.
So there are some places where delegations have been put in there.
And it's
It
not
just
here.
hasn't been delegation for being a spokesperson for the board. So
Got
I
it.
apologize that makes a more difficult decision for you in what you're doing right now, and that I didn't see that or notice that before when I reviewed the policy.
Well, it's very helpful. Thank you for the clarification. I'll put it back out to the board. Member Carey?
In light of the, I always want to say testimony, and that's too much, but if I say thoughts, that's too little. In light of the comments by AAJ Buse, which suggests that the guidelines regarding statutory interpretation would favor the analysis that only the chair and vice chairs may represent the board, and as this particular provision 2007 would empower everyone in contradiction to those bylaws, I would say, and I'd withdraw my motion to amend and rather do a motion to send this back to finance. You can, was it finance? To finance, and Chair Norton can thank me later. But I would make a motion to send this back to finance and reconcile. If we need to change the bylaws, then we look at that, but I don't believe we're ready to proceed on this at this time. And that would be my motion.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded. Discussion of that motion to refer back to finance. Member Davis, are you for this?
Yeah, I see the quandary, but I wouldn't put this back again. It's already been put back once, then it would be put back another time. And the legislative session starts. So whoever the people, were, our committee chairs who brought this forward, if, it's starting now. So I would just say, if we add the words or as assigned, then this becomes more specific than the other. Would that be accurate?
I think she's saying within a particular legal document, the specific trumps the general, but not between two different documents because the bylaws would be subject to code.
Okay.
Sorry.
So can we put as assigned in this and then ask that the bylaws be brought up so we can amend that bylaw in committee?
That might be for a procedural point that might be a procedural question for member Buse. I guess bylaws require 10 votes. It would have to start in committee, right, to have a bylaw. So in that case, we would have a policy that's out of step with the bylaws as we go into the legislative session, hoping that it's fixed in March after. I get where you're trying to go. I'm just trying to map this out too. Oh, hey, can you get Cindy back on?
I'll just withdraw that, but the chair should have the flexibility to assign someone to represent the board, like any of the committee chairs in particular, and has done in the past with legislative testimonials. So, you know, it's fine, let's let it go and get this day done. But honestly, we should not, you know, we should look at the chair being able to assign someone to represent.
I have one clarifying question, I guess, and I'm trying to act as the official spokesperson for the board. I think when I was finance chair, I was asked on occasion to present from the finance committee, and I would keep my comments to that. I think we had one recently where the full board hadn't seen it, and I don't remember if it was Chair or somebody. That might be a question for you know, AG Buse too, though. If they're not speaking for the full board, but they're speaking for this is what's been done in our committee upon request from the board chair, would that be okay, since they're not speaking for the board?
Their assignment as the chair of that committee, that would fit within the assignment that you gave them. And that is in their duties that you can assign. You can assign them the duties that go with being a board chair. A committee chair and a committee member. Those are in the bylaws, those assignments.
Thank you. Okay. I think it may have been me who was speaking, but we were speaking about something that had only gone through committee. And so I had to make clear I'm only speaking for something, I don't know, what it might have been 114. It might have been an early version of our legislative funding request, but we were only partway there, right? And so whoever it was made clear that this is just passed by our committee, not by the board. But that would seem to be something a committee chair could do just as well as the board chair if they kept it within that scope. I think that's what you're saying. So, right? Okay.
We may just.
So that's a possibility. Okay, well, it's on the floor. Let's see if we have, you know, other thoughts. I think that's correct, that if it went back to committee, the first time we could get it back here is March, just as the session is ending. So that would be a challenge. Who's up? Member Lear.
Well, I would support having the chair have a little more flexibility. I'm not, however, ready to open, because we can't just open up that narrow piece of the other rule, of the other bylaw. So
Yeah, you can.
I don't think so.
You can, correct me if I'm wrong, you can open up a section. You don't open up the whole bylaws. Is that inaccurate?
If only Michelle Buse were here, we could ask her. Well, she said a committee chair. She said a committee chair.
Okay,
we're
past
I just want to put this off until after the session, is my point. I don't want to, if we do it as narrowly as that, a section of that rule, and then be able to decide in the finance committee what we like, that would be great. If it means opening up that whole bylaw, then I think that's a discussion for another month.
We have.
I seem to recall some
since I've
discussion
been-
about that.
Yeah,
maybe even
since
some
I've been back, we
clarification.
actually did do that with a rule where we only opened one section of the rule. So I would think that we could do that with the bylaws as well. I can check Robert's Rules of Order, but we did do that with the rule as well. We've opened just that section of the rule.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And Vice Chair Earl's reminding me, we actually did that with the bylaws when we addressed the question of the disclaimer, I believe. We opened it for that and not for the entire
Yes.
bylaws. And we had guidance at the time that was okay. All right. Given that clarification, again, I don't have an opinion or position. I just want to make sure we know what the options are and the repercussions of whatever. But other thoughts, lights, Member Carey?
Yeah, I just want to speak to the motion, and that is that I just want to reiterate. I know that some may think that, why are we focusing on this? This seems like a trivial thing, and we have the legislative session. These bylaws protect each one of us, whether we're Democrats or Republicans. We represent big districts or little districts. It protects us from arbitrary and capricious rulings by leadership or chairs, and it keeps us as members in line. So I don't look at these bylaws as something that we should look at and say, well, how do we get around this to make it work right now? I think that is very short-term and harmful thinking. I think the proper approach is to say, what is in the best interest of the students of this state, this body, and then we deliberate and we make those decisions. And it's a little disheartening when the emphasis is on this quick fix. I think that gets us into more trouble over the long run, and that's why I've made the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Davis.
No, Member Davis.
Excuse me. Okay.
mean that.
What do you mean?
I hit you.
That's fine. Do it.
Hymas.
Do it. I need it. Member Hymas.
Can I just clarify? And I'm going to ask for a friend named Kristen. And if this goes back to committee, are they re-looking? So you're saying refer the policy back to committee. We're not, and Joe, maybe you can ask this. We're not asking for them to re-look at the policy because right now we're wanting to decide whether or not to align the bylaws to even consider the policy. Is that right? So if this goes back to committee, I don't think it's another discussion on policy 2007. It's a discussion on whether or not we want to align this to even move forward. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Board Member Hymas. Yes, I would agree with that 100%, that this is not about looking at this again, but rather in the totality of the context of we have this conflict, how do we address it, how do we resolve it, does it require a different course of action, not necessarily this particular rule. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just curious, maybe we've heard from the board chairs, or the committee chairs, and Member Carey's also in leadership. I'm just curious if the board chairs that put this up have any opinion about whether to send it back to committee. What would be your preference? Again, this has been driven by committee chairs. I want to respect your intent. Any comment there?
It's a bit concerning that we're on the third time. I hope that this isn't baseball and third strike we're out. But I think it's an important issue that needs to be addressed, and we need to dig until we get it done. And so do I want to do it? Absolutely not. If it needs to be done, then I think that we do what we need to do to get it done. And we obviously have a conflict there that needs to be addressed. But that's from my perspective, and I'd love to hear what Chair Booth and Chair Hymas have to say, if you wouldn't mind.
Any comment from Member Booth, or I should say Chair Booth or Chair Hymas?
Davis and then Hymas.
I would make an alternate motion that we bring the policy back to this board in 1 month, and that we bring that little section that needs to be changed only of the bylaws, so it doesn't turn into a big can of worms. That little section to be amended be brought back with it 1 month from today to the full board. Yes, it is.
That's a substitute. Does that have a second?
Second.
So that's been seconded. Okay, so well, we're about to be in the phase where we have a weekly meeting, right, through the legislative session. So I think that's what's being proposed. I mean, I guess I would just say for clarity, what we have is a section that says a section of the proposed policy that says the board chair can identify another board member to go speak, and a bylaw that says only the board chair can be the spokesperson for the board. So in the middle of that, I think, as I understand it, if I were to assign, the board chair were to assign or request a board member to speak as the committee chair or speak for their committee, that would not raise any tension with the bylaws, as I understand it, right? So that is an open, that's an opportunity if we want to pursue that, but only have the chair invite board members to speak within their role. We can do that without amending the bylaws. If the desire is to amend the bylaws so that the chair's not the only official spokesperson or delegated to the vice chairs, then obviously we can have that discussion. But I just want to make clear, there is that option. Unless people are inclined to want a broader opportunity to speak as the spokesperson for the board, that would require a bylaw amendment. So, Member Hymas, or I'm sorry, am I
I
getting
just-
out of line?
My intent was just that we would change it so that it could be the chair or as assigned. You could assign any member of this body to speak on an issue of which they are an expert. Maybe they're helping to chair the reports and requirements task force or some other thing. That you have full flexibility as assigned, but that person is under the same restrictions that this presents in the rule.
Got it. So that would take a bylaw change. Member Hymas? Or am I, where are we? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I support this motion. I appreciate what Kristen said as well. It would be nice to be done with this, but we do not want to conflict with bylaws, right? And that's why I asked the question earlier, is to make sure we're focused on the right thing, because I don't know if this policy, from what I understand, needs to just be set aside. So the discussion on the policy should be ending, and then we are voting to, Cindy, is this right? We're voting now to open up the opportunity to discuss the bylaw. And ultimately, that will either shut down the policy or not, right? If you're not in favor of the policy, then don't open up the bylaw, right? And you were going to have a 10 majority vote anyway. So thank you. Just the section, just the small, yeah.
Or as assigned.
And I'm in favor with that, yeah.
So again, for clarity, this would postpone this discussion about 2007 to the February meeting or our next legislative meeting, and include discussion of the bylaw. Yes, that line of the bylaw. Okay. Which requires 10 votes. This policy requires only a majority. All right, I'm just trying to make sure we're on the same page. Remember, Carrie, did you have comment to this?
No, I have two more motions.
And do we need to, clarify that along the board bylaws, it is board bylaw paragraph 6A or whatever that is? 6, yeah, Roman 6 or whatever, regular Arabic 6A. 6A. Okay, can we add that? That's a. That works. It's reverse the Roman and the regular, but all right. Any discussion then? Further discussion on that motion? AG Buse?
Few minutes and see if there's a better place for that to fit within the bylaws, and make sure that if you leave the motion to within that section, solve that for that purpose, find the best place to put it in. I don't know how to word that in a motion.
Is that a friendly 6A or another relevant section of the bylaws, or? Or another relevant section of the bylaws? Does that cover it? Because that clearly defines it by relevance to this.
Okay, yes.
Okay, all right. With that, I think we've got it up and we can vote. All right, let's see. Motion's on the floor. Please vote. I'm sorry, it's on the floor, but not on the board. We'll wait for you. We'll stew in it and think about it. Well, the motion is to bump this and the bylaw to. Actually, I'm sorry. Do we want to say February? Or do we want to say the next board meeting?
Keep in mind,
Okay.
we're not going to look how long this has taken, and we only have a couple of meetings. Yeah.
You want February? Okay, we're trying to give board members time for this to go into effect, whatever they want to do. It's February we'll still have it a month and a half, but we'll be halfway through the session. So your call. If that's, sure.
Do with our other questions or concerns about this rule? I know that Member Carey said he had a couple of amendments, but if the rest of us have, or others of us have clarifications, or what do we do with, will we have
be
another 2-hour
deferred.
discussion about this?
Or we can try to do it in between. We can put ourselves to the task of getting clarity in the meantime, and then it'll come to the board vote.
And I did ask one person who wrote this draft, and he didn't know. So not that I haven't tried, not exhaustively, but I'm just thinking there are some phrases and words in here that still need clarification.
Well, I guess, I mean, we could do it now, or we could do it in the next board meeting, or we could try to give it a shot behind the scenes a little bit and save ourselves
I'll try that.
some
Thanks.
time. And I'd be happy to do that too. I think we could all do that to make sure we clarify what we can clarify. Okay. Do we need to change, or are we sticking with February? I think we're sticking with February.
Was that Member Davis's motion?
Yeah, we just lost the motion maker. We'll watch.
Disconnected from device.
It's okay. Anybody have a song, a poem,
I like the Jeopardy music.
a dance? What's that? Yeah, I'm just giving it a sec. I want to make sure if you guys are thinking. Remember, Davis, or is this what we're going to move on then? Is the motion as is, or were there thoughts of amending? This is how, that's where it is. Okay. So, Member Davis, substitute motion is the board continue board policy 2007 to February board meeting along with section 6.6A or another relevant section of the board bylaws. Member Carey, did you have a?
Just a point of clarification. The screen reads differently from what was just read by the chair, and I understand we're limited to characters. Is that why? Okay.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure. Okay, thank you.
This will be in the minutes and that will govern. So this is for our convenience and
Thank you, Chair. Thank you,
teeing up.
Kelsey.
But yes, good question. Okay. Seeing no lights, let us vote.
Mine's not coming through.
Did you tap it? Oh, there you go. Okay, voting is complete. That passes 12-3. The noes are Member Carey, Member Bogus, and Member Klein. All right, so that puts us back to. Actually, that supersedes everything, I believe. So, okay, does that conclude finance, Chair Norton? All right. That's how I remember it. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for all your work in finance.